You flag nation-state actors in this report. What is the nature of that threat, and has it really escalated to, more than it was a year ago?
Well, it has, and what we did in the most recent threat report is to really look at the geopolitical landscape and understand how the moving political environment actually impacts the cyber world. And what we've seen are things like actors out of China, focusing on the healthcare sector, really trying to understand how the healthcare system works and trying to deal with an aging population, trying to figure out how they can take care of their population by learning some of the tricks of the trade or the secrets of companies, for example, in the U.S.
The thing that really strikes me, George, it's David Kirkpatrick here, is the range of threats that you're highlighting in your new report. I mean, the number of different things that can go wrong just seems to be increasing by the day, and the range of countries where there are real specialists emerging in doing bad things seems to be growing. How scared should the average company be, would you say?
Well, I think we've really reached a tipping point where boards of directors, when they look at systemic risks, they have to consider cybersecurity. We outline in an infographic, you can get it right from our website, 13 industries that are being targeted. And we actually looked at the plan, the 5-year plan, for example, that China put out to actually build a profile of what industries will be targeted and what technologies and areas will be focused on from a cyber attack perspective.
Now, I was recently speaking with the CTO of Tanium, a cybersecurity firm, about, the reality of the threat and how companies actually understand, how well they actually understand what the threats are. Take a listen to what Orion Hindawi told me.
Basic hygiene. So this is something that a lot of people don't really think about. They always want to worry about the ninjas coming in through the skylights. It turns out that many of our customers, when we get there, have the front door open and the windows are unlocked. So patches aren't deployed. Multi-factor authentication isn't enabled. Disk encryption isn't present. If you aren't doing those things, you don't need to worry about Russia. You need to worry about the 12-year-old script kid who has access to Google. And I think many of our customers are realizing that most of their big attacks aren't coming from nation states. They're actually coming from people who are not that sophisticated, who are exploiting holes that they've left open because their tools were broken.
George, how would you respond to that?
Well, when we look at the problem, it really has to be broken down into people, process, and technology. And this is not just a technology problem that we have. And when we think about where this is going, we have to add intelligence to the overall cybersecurity equation. So when we put this report together and we work with a lot of multinational customers, they are dealing with these threats. They are dealing with more than just the 13-year-old script kiddies. They're dealing with nation states. They're dealing with cybercrime. They're dealing with very sophisticated actors. And that's why adding intelligence to the people, process, and technology mantra is absolutely critical, and why we put the report out.
So, George, you're putting out tons of interesting information, but is the security industry just like a boom industry now? Should the viewers of this show just be out crazily buying security stocks?
Hang on that note, I would like to point out that cybersecurity stocks are actually down, further than the average. The NASDAQ Cybersecurity Index down 13% year to date, which is much lower than
Is that a buying opportunity, though?
What do you think of that, George?
Well, you've got to look at some of the companies that have been beat up there in the market, like FireEye, et cetera. These companies have come up with some technologies which, unfortunately, from a network perspective, aren't always solving the problem. And there are companies like ours and other up-and-comers that are really focused on dealing with the most advanced threat and focusing on the endpoint as opposed to just a network play. So overall, I think cybersecurity, the market's a fantastic place to be. And like anything else, it's going to ebb and flow depending on how the overall market actually reacts.